All right, finally, another worst to best rock albums. We're long past episodes where I own every single album by a particular artist, but I didn't even consider this one because it's until I listened to Eddie Trunk's show. It's going to be Dio, but not just Dio the band. Dio, Black Sabbath, Rainbow, and even Elf. We're going to cover every album from there. Eddie Trunk had a special on a few weeks ago where the top 20 songs and all the fans called in, and I was like, well, that's the way to do it. Because I don't have every single Dio album, but I have everything he did by Sabbath and Rainbow and whatever. And I first of all, I got the shirt at the concert and got to meet the man after the show and got his autograph. Waited online for probably, I don't know, 2.5 hours and spoke to the man. He was last in the line. There was Vinny Appice, then it was Geezer, then it was Tony, and then it was Dio. And you walk down the line, you shake their hands and stuff like that. And then Dio was gabbing it up with everybody. Everybody else was kind of quiet. Thank you, thank you. He goes, oh, look, they never leave me enough room. They never leave me enough room to sign there. Oh, thank you. And then I was like, thank you, Dio. I was so happy. Put the slip cover back on. All right. So, also, I haven't done one of these lists in a long time because the weather's finally warm. I can go for a walk every night, and I listen to another album, and we're working our way through stuff. So I've listened to the last couple of Dio albums I never got around to listening to. And I keep getting messages from people who watch the other videos, and it's fun talking to them. Guy Peter from Poland, he watched every one of my videos. I chatted back with him over he gave me a recap, his thoughts on every one of them. That was pretty fun. It was like, all right, I like doing this. And like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. We're going to do a couple more this summer also. Be nice. I always write back nice stuff. If you got like weird, all my comment sections, if you read them, very nice comments. You know why? Because I delete all the idiots. And this sometimes the worst, the best videos, they bring out the idiots. They get all butthurt if you don't like their favorite album or something. So let's get into it. Bottom of the list. First of all, he's never done anything that was embarrassingly bad. There's nothing like bad quality in any one of his albums. I'm going to say that. He never embarrassed himself, but I'm lumping 3 albums together, 19, 20, and 21. I'm doing the Elf albums. Pick any order you want. I didn't dive deep into them. You probably didn't either. They're hard to find, although with streaming and stuff, it's no excuse. If I listened to them more, got more into them, they're not really rising up the list any higher. Dio, I think, is the greatest metal vocalist ever. He's got more range than everybody. He can sing a ballad better than Halford. This was kind of like, I can't even describe it. It was kind of like Southern rock, even though Elf was from New York, and it's just not what we came to know him later. It didn't really hit me, so it's not my favorite. Pick any order that you want. I didn't really dive that too deep. I listened to a quick skim through the albums just to say I did, but I don't see. But I dove even further back than Elf. You think the album covers the first one where he's dressed up like an actual elf? He looked like a monster. He's got like prosthetic ears and stuff like that. You think it's gonna sound like probably like Uriah Heep or something? Like, is more rainbow medieval lyrics? No, it's just kind of like Southern rock. I couldn't get into any of them. But let's move on. I've already spent too much time talking about an album that's kind of irrelevant. We want to get to the meat. We'll move along faster. 18, I'm going Killing the Dragon. Not a bad album. As far as guitarists, probably my least favorite guitarist of all of his lineups was Doug Aldrich, who's not a bad guitarist. Nothing he does like sinks in with me. I have a DVD of him, Inferno Live, I think it was called. where he's the guitarist on that. Him doing the solos, I didn't really like this on the album. Just he's also on White Snake, and nothing of he does. You can tell he's a good guitarist, but nothing he does like resonates with me. Dio has to. He can't do it by himself. He's got to have a better guitarist. He feeds off the guitarist. Iommi, Blackmore, come on. Vivian Campbell. We'll get to them. So, 17, similar kind of album, but I'm also not a big fan of like more modern production, but I'm going Master of the Moon. We got Craig Goldie back, and he fits Dio more. He's got the style to it. 17, you think, oh, that's pretty bit. No, it's still a decent album. Also, with his later albums, I don't really like the production on them. Modern production, even though this album's like 20 years old by now, it's like you listen to the 70s stuff, his 80s stuff, his 90s stuff. It's like every couple of years production changed. You could say, oh, that sounds like it came out like 84, 85-ish or something. Oh, that album definitely came out late 80s. Anything from like the last 20 years, production hasn't really changed, and it's all kind of like stale sounding, and that's what I kind of... If this sounded like the sound 80s, which the sound they were trying to recapture, I think the album would have resonated more, would have been sunk in. I would have got all the juices from it, but it didn't really hit me that much. So 16. Also, of his 80s stuff, which I like the sound of, also Craig Goldie, we're going Dream Evil. Band started off hot with Holy Diver, Last in Line. I think by this time they lost Vivian Campbell. They brought in a new guitarist. The original style, it didn't really change the style of the band. It just kind of felt like it was getting a little tired at that point, because that lineup was gone. The whole entire lineup was gone by the next album. Just skipping ahead now, we'll go to 15. We're going to go Magica. Cool idea, concept album. Every band's got to have at least one. They got to have one concept album. I have no clue exactly what it's really about. I think I listened to, there's one track 18 minutes long where he tells the story of Magica. I half listened to that while I was driving once, and it didn't like sink in what was going on, but I just like listening. There's like all the weird, like I'd assume it was about like medieval black magic and stuff like that, but you got like robots talking and stuff in between. There's no real bangers on the album, which also for like a concept album. Because each song's supposed to be telling a story. It wasn't quite like The Wall where they revisit themes and stuff like that, or at least I didn't listen that deeply to it. This is one of the last albums that I listened to, just to finish up, to make this worst to best list. Even if I listen to this one more, it's not going to move up the list, just for what it is. Like, you can go for a walk, but you got to listen to the whole thing. You're not really picking out songs from it too much. All right. Ones I actually own. We're going to do... I think I flip-flopped these a little bit. Did I miss one? Alright, I flip-flopped some of these around. Number 14. Sacred Heart. Had this, I bought this at like an all-metal vinyl shop, record store, back in the mid-90s. The little label fell off. It probably said like $2. That's back when you get records cheap like that then. Now this is vintage. It's probably go for a few bucks. King of Rock and Roll. It starts off sounding... Now that I have them in front of me, I can read the titles. Some of these I got brain... The other ones I got brain fart. I couldn't remember the titles of the songs I liked. King of Rock and Roll. It's weird. It's supposed to sound live, but you can tell it was done in the studio. None of the rest of the album's live. Thought that was weird. Hungry for Heaven. That was like a big radio hit. This is him going pop, but I'm not disgusted by it. I like it. Everything doesn't have to be heavy. All movies don't have to be rated R. Dio can go a little bit light. He can make some cheesy videos. I don't care. That's what I think of that. So where are we next? I only had a CDR of this one. This one is where I'm talking about great production. It's getting back to after Dream Evil. He ditches the whole band. Gets a new guitarist, a teenager, Rowan Robertson. He was only like 18. Lock Up The Wolves. This is one of his best sounding albums, I think. Evil on Queen Street, that was one song off. I forgot the name of the first song off the album. It kind of sounds like the guy's channeling Richie Black. Very good guitar. Never worked with him again. I think at one point they were going to get back together, do another album or tour, fill in. Never did. Guy's young. He's probably only in his early 50s now. But there's a guitar tone on this. It sounded kind of like... The whole album is a little bit more bluesy, which took me by surprise when I listened to it. I was like, oh, it was after, Dream Evil. It was probably even poppier and cheesier and just like more out of gas, because he goes back to Sabbath after this one. But no, it was a bluesy. It was heavier. I really like the guitar set. It sounded like Tony Iommi's guitar at the time, so I was kind of wondering if he used like an SG, or Tony sometime used a BC Rich in studio. No, I watched some video of him on tour. Real grainy. It looks like he was just using like a fat Strat. It had like the Fender head on it and everything. Very impressed by this album. It's underrated, I think. I don't think people put that one that high. A lot of the 80s albums that I didn't own, I knew from like videos and stuff like that, and greatest hits and clips and everywhere. So by the time I got through, actually listened to the whole 80s album, I knew all the songs. After Lock Up The Wolves, what do we got? They had some of these out of order. The last one. The last album he ever did. Heaven and Hell was what they were calling Black Sabbath at the time. It was really the album, The Devil You Know. Did they tour this? I think they did tour this album. I didn't go see it. When it first came out, I thought it was kind of flat, because there's no real fast rockers on here. The more you listen to it, Bible Black, absolute stone cold classic. Love that song. This one you got to listen to a lot more to appreciate it. It didn't sound like Dehumanizer. It does not sound like First Heaven and Hell or Mob Rules. This one's a slow burn. Much better than 13, Black Sabbath's 13, when Ozzy comes back. This one schools that. Those riffs on that sounded tired, because their whole point with that album was make it sound like it came out after Master. No, they were going for something a little bit different here. They were older, they were wiser, slowed it down a little bit. It was a good album. So where are we at now? Devil You Know? Last in Line. I don't have a copy of Last in Line. This is another one which I kind of just listened to by streaming, just to fill this in. I knew every song on there, Egypt, all that stuff, The Last in Line. What was my thought? It's a good follow-up to Holy Diver. It's just not as good. It's kind of like Quiet Riot's Mental Health and Condition Critical. They both kind of... Once Dio, seems like every time Dio does it, the next album's also the follow-up. They're also very close. And I don't have that much to say about this one. I like it. It's very good. It's just not as... It's the follow-up album. It's so similar to Holy Diver. It's got the big set-piece song, which the Last in Line is kind of similar to the song Holy Diver. Egypt is a lot similar to... I don't know what I'm saying. Move on. All right, here's an upset. Most people don't like this album. I like this album. And I got a remastered deluxe version. Angry Machines. From the mid-90s. This is back before I had the internet, and you just have to visit the music store, and the album pops up. There's another Dio out of nowhere. And then you buy it, and then you rush home to listen to it, because there's no YouTube to check it out, and I got it because I love the album that came out before it. Strange Highways, which we didn't get to. And I liked it then, and then when I rebought it because I had it on tape. That's another thing. I wish I had only bought CDs back then because I ended up rebuying almost every tape I ever had on CD. Could have just spent $3 more. Although my car I had back in the late 90s and stuff, that only had a tape player. And then when you put your CD player in the car, you hit a bump. It always kept skipping and stuff. Whatever. We're going back to this. Oh, yeah, when I rebought this, I was like, oh, I used to love that album. But no, I re-listened to it a bunch of times. A lot of songs stunned out. Hunter of the Heart is probably the best song on the album. Double Monday, one of the most pissed off angry songs I've ever heard. You just start screaming, rape, rape, rape. And at the end, it was like, you're like, whoa, excellent. And this one also has a really good concert on the back. It's only listing 12 tracks. It's got more than that. There's a lot ones that I don't know why they didn't list all. I don't know why the listing is so wrong on that. So where do we go after Angry Machines? Speaking of Elf earlier, he had a band before Elf. It was called The Prophets. The one thing I found were a whole collection of it on YouTube. I don't know if it's a bootleg. I don't know if it was an official album, but it has a collection of all his doo-wop songs from the early 60s, where he was also, it was Ronnie and the Prophets. It's called Dio at Domino's. Ronnie Dio and the Prophets, Dio at Domino's. I don't know if that's just a collection of, because I've had his doo-wop stuff since, what was that? Since Napster, downloading bootlegs then. And this is, I finally found like a collection of them. I'm putting that on the list. If you never heard the song, An Angel Is Missing, look that up. Older guy I work with, me and him just talk classic rock all day at work. He's in his early 60s, and I played on my phone. I played him, guess who this is? He had no clue, and I told him, it's Dio. He's like, what? I'm like, yes. And this is not only is it good, like, Frankie Valli type music, it's like the best Frankie Valli type music. A couple of those songs. Not every song was great. Check it out. It'll blow your mind. So where are we now? All right, just about every album here on out, I listed as legendary. 8 through 1 is legendary. Number 8, we're heading into the Rainbow stuff. Did I even mention Rainbow? No. We got Rainbow, Long Live Rock and Roll. Oh, there's 3 Rainbow albums. Because I haven't mentioned it's not a bad. The other 2 are just that much better. Long Live Rock and Roll, Kill the King, LA Connection, Gates of Babylon. This album friggin' rocks. It's awesome. I love it. Of course, Blackmore kicking ass. Then they wanted to go in a more commercial direction, and Dio's like, no, screw that. He was waiting for Sacred Heart to do that. He wanted to have more radio hits then. Then they brought in, and then Rainbow went in another direction, and I like that version. Anything Blackmore did, I love. Number 7. Another follow-up album, Mob Rules. Also very similar to Heaven and Hell, where they had like the big set-piece album song, The Sign of the Southern Cross, and, you know, the fast rocker, like Turn Up the Night, was kind of like Die Young, and Mob Rules, the big fast song. Love that song. I love, probably my favorite live album by Dio is Live Evil from that tour. Controversial live album because you got fired or quit, whatever the whole situation, mutual parting of ways after that tour. But the live album, they were mixing it in the studio. Some people say a lot of the crowd noise, it's really edited, re-recorded, crowd noise is fake. I don't care. I always loved that album. Always sounded good to me. Oh man, realize this one's broken. The next one's kind of broken. I try to keep all my stuff mint condition. Number 6, Rainbow Rising. Maybe I got it too low because it's got probably his second or third best song he ever did. Maybe even first, depending on what day of the week it is for me. Stargazer on Rainbow Rising. The rest of the album is good, but it's not. Nothing is as good as Stargazer. Like Tarot Woman's is great. But Stargazer is the most epic damn song ever. Maybe was one of Blackmore's top 5 songs too, overall of his career. You can argue it as number 1. Well, no, it's not better than Highway Star, but it's a top 5 for him too. That's where we got Rainbow Rising, and here's one where I had to switch around. I was calling Audible before when I was setting up all my little things, trying to put all my CDs in order. I called an Audible. This one's a controversial one. Put Holy Diver at number 5. Why is that controversial? The one I put before it, the one directly before this, probably would make this controversial, because this is the second best of his solo band, Dio. And that was another thing. If this was only, I don't know if I mentioned this. If I only did the Dio band, I would have did the Last in Line albums, the stuff that Vivian Campbell and Vinny Appice did after he died, putting the band back together. But this is just a strictly Dio list. If this was a Dio the band list, those albums would be in here. Rainbow in the Dark, Stand Up and Shout, Straight Through the Heart. I love that song. Invisible. I remember listening as like a teenager, just getting all like, it would be one of my depressed songs. I went to Dio a lot of the time when I was like angry and pissed and getting all teenagery and stuff. And that's what leads us into, that's a good segue, leads us into number 4. Here's the big upset pick. A lot of people probably don't like this one. I did a whole video once on this as underrated albums. It is Dio-Strange Highways. He had just left Black Sabbath and he was pissed. There's one video. They all made up friends and were all together before he died. But there's a video of him on a tour bus and the guy interviewing, he's talking trash about Black Sabbath, saying they ruined it because they went to go do a reunion with Ozzy, and it's like, that makes us seem lower. Which he was right, because that Dehumanizer now, we haven't even got to it, so you know how I feel about that. And remember the weekend edition of like MTV News where they had like new albums of the week. It's like they actually said Dio, this album was out. I was like, that's another way you found out like an album came out. You might see it in like Hit Parade or Circus Magazine, or you might randomly catch it, and they weren't even talking about metal. And was this 93? No, this is 1994. Most pissed off album ever. So angry. I was trying to listen to this at work while I was backstocking stuff, because I work in a warehouse half the damn day. I had to turn it off. It was too angry and too pissed. I couldn't do any work. I was just all charged up. So the one I really love, which one am I thinking of? Pain. He's like, bury my bones on the moon. If you ever should find me, it'll be too soon. That was like the heaviest line I ever heard in my life back then. It's just like, Every song's that, there's like a fade out, Here's to You, the second to last song, and then it fades back into the last song, Bring Down the Rain. Every one of these songs is just completely pissed off. Probably turns you off if you're just like a Rainbow in the Dark 80s fan, or you like Sacred Heart, stuff like that. This album followed up Dehumanizer, which was pretty damn heavy, and he was still pissed. He still had this renewed energy in him. It ruled. And that Tracy G guy, I don't know what he did before, I don't know what he did after, but he did the 2 Dio albums, that and Angry Machines. It was a beast. So, where are we now? Number 3. First Rainbow album. Other people would probably put Rising first. I'm going with this one because it's got the man on the Silver Mountain. Every time I hear it live, even Blackmore, they always play it too fast. This would be like a slow, like Smoke on the Water kind of pace. It was one of the first riffs I even learned to play too, and I'm not a great guitarist anyway, but I know how to play that one. Still I'm Sad, even though he doesn't sing on that one. The instrumental is a great song, but he sings lyrics to it on the live album. I didn't know it was a cover too. It was a Yardbirds song. I know I heard the Yardbirds one. I don't remember if there were lyrics to that one. Must have been. Either that or Dio wrote some new lyrics for it. But I just looked, and he's not listed on the writing credits. Temple of the King. It was weird. My tape, I think the tape I had said side A was, side B was side A and side A was side B. I always thought it started with Snake Charmer. But no, it actually starts with Man on the Silver Mountain. I gotta go double check that. I gotta go get the tape. I was right. The tape did flip side A and side B. See? Snake Charmer. Album starts with that. And the Man on the Silver Mountain was beginning of side 2. I don't know. I like the original version better. Started off with the Man on the Silver Mountain. Ooh, this one's a little dusty. Alright, number 2. I already talked about the album a bunch of times. It's Dehumanizer. I was talking this album up for years. I felt like I was the only one. And in that Eddie Trunk episode, everybody was talking about this album. So it got love, especially when they put the Heaven and Hell album. They got back together as the Heaven and Hell version of Black Sabbath. And all these songs I finally got to go. I saw them. Not only did I get to see Dio live, my one and only time, half the damn set was this album. And I love it. I've almost heard this album too many times, which I almost sick of listening to it, but there's certain points on the album I have to go back to a lot. This is Tony Iommi's heaviest riffing. If you don't like this, you're not an actual Tony Iommi fan. There's a million leftover demo tracks if you want to track them down on YouTube of the sessions. There's a couple of songs that never really made it here. Big song off this, Time Machine. It's got 2 versions of the Wayne's World version, the album version. They did that also with the Mob Rules. There was the heavy metal soundtrack version, and then it's different from the album version. Can't really tell those two apart. Same with this one. It was like, why bother re-recording it? Those two sound almost exactly the same. Favorite songs off this, Sins of the Father. Love that song. Computer God. After All. TV Crimes. This is what first introduced me to Dio. That was the new video that was on Headbangers Ball. Black Sabbath. I was like, whoa, that song kicks ass. Because the only Black Sabbath song I ever heard before that was Iron Man. And I never even heard Paranoid yet, because this is the early 90s, and I just heard of Black Sabbath and knew they were cool. And I had like 14 or 15, and I didn't get to go out buying tapes yet. I only had like 2 or 3 tapes at the time. And I was just like, I have to devour all the heavy metal out there. That was one of the first songs. This is one of the first albums I got. I had the tape version. That's upstairs. I'm not going to grab it. It's well worn out. Love this album. Good memories. So that leaves us with well, we're going to do an honorable mention. My favorite Dio moment ever is on Deep Purple live album with them in the London Symphony Orchestra. I think it's from 1999. He does song Butterfly Ball, which was a soundtrack to a cartoon that Roger Glover did in the 70s around Rainbow era. Because Elf was Deep Purple's opening act. That's how he got to know, Blackmore got to know him. It's around that same beginning era. does the Butterfly Ball song. Awesome song. Better live because this is with an orchestra with Roger Glover. Each of the members of Deep Purple got to do like a solo song of theirs. Roger Glover picked Butterfly Ball and Sitting in a Dream, both from that soundtrack. Killing it, has a big orchestra. Everybody's going nuts for it. It's also my favorite Smoke on the Water because they bring him back for the end of the show, and Ian Gillan and Ronnie both sing Smoke on the Water. The whole audience is going crazy. They got the orchestra with them. So many good happy feelings coming out of that. That was my favorite Dio moment ever. Look that one up. So that leads us. It's gotta be Heaven and Hell. For the song Heaven and Hell alone. But Neon Nights, Die Young, kicks ass. Children of the Sea, kicks ass. Wishing Well. There's no bad song on here at all. This I probably listen to more, but this one, you haven't lived until you can't now. He's unfortunately he's gone. Seeing Dio do Heaven and Hell live because he adds another verse with the big black shape looking down on me, and that's what we're at. That was the Dio albums. Like, share, subscribe. We're up next is definitely gonna be Whitesnake. I already listened to all of them. I'm just kind of gathered my thoughts. Wanted to do this one first. And then probably later in the summer, I'm going to spend the whole summer, I'm going to listen to AC/DC. I just wanted to finally get them in, download them into my brain. I was working on Megadeth, but a lot of the middle, like the 2000s albums, after the 90s, and then before like the teens, those albums were kind of hard to get through. I don't really have any strong opinions on any of them. They're good, they're all right, but I can't really tell any of them apart. None of them really stick out to me, so maybe I'll listen to them a bunch more times. Maybe I'll have more to say about that. But thank you. Thank you.